All right, what's up, guys? Happy Sunday. Chuck and Jayhawk back to bring you some news, hopefully, some good news on this short NBA slate. We only have 3 games for the main slate today. Hate the NBA schedule, but 3 games is better than 13 games. So, how we doing, Jayhawk?
Doing pretty good, man. Well, not typical Sunday slate, but definitely a smaller slate today. Not in love with it, but definitely, I still think there's some spots we can get into that I think could have leverage on the field. So excited to dive into it here.
Yeah, the injury news, it's so annoying the way Underdog does it. I hate how much they're giving for tomorrow because I don't care about tomorrow yet. Like, wait until at least after the slate locks to start pushing out all the Monday news. But we do have a couple pieces today. Bradley Beal is going to be out for Phoenix. It sounds like Jayshawn Tate is back. And then Malik Beasley is out for Milwaukee. So we'll see who that gives a boost to. Is there anything else that I missed?
Not too much. Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. Jay Tate rolled in, so hurts Tardis in just a little bit, but yeah, pretty much nailed it.
Just scrolling through, making sure. It's like I'm seeing all the early games happening. I skipped the early slate. It's working on NFL, so yeah, let's just dive into it. The DraftKings slate today, when I was building my early lineups, it's so difficult because I really want to play Giannis, but it's kind of impossible to, right?
Yeah, man. Like I'm just finding myself getting to more KD. Like I don't know, great matchup. Giannis is really tough to defend, and I completely agree.
Like I tried so many different configurations without sacrificing too many of the other mid-range guys, and it was not working. I mean, just looking at the model, of course, Giannis is always going to be on top, coming in at 6% ownership on DraftKings, 10 over on FanDuel. If you can find a way to fit him in, I don't know if we're going to have value open up later. But I mean, he's going to be a good play, like in a vacuum. But just looking at the slate overall and like lineup construction, I don't know if it makes sense to force him in. We really don't have the value today. And so you mentioned you like KD as a pay up. I think he's great. Devin Booker, um, Steph Curry. I mean Dame. Those are basically the 5 studs on the slate. Are you getting to anyone besides KD?
After KD, I think I'd probably go to Booker just because, again, once again, great matchup. No Beal, those two really stick out to me. But I think all these other guys, Curry, Giannis, and Dame, all make sense in tournaments as well. The Phoenix guys are just kind of the guys that are standing out to me.
Yeah, I mean, 247 total, Phoenix versus Washington. It's like we have to be the most interested in this game. And so Devin Booker and KD, I think, are the 2 studs I'm most interested in. It's weird because I want to play a few of the Houston guys, but finding the Milwaukee runbacks, I mean, with Malik Beasley out, I already liked, I was going to say Chris Middleton. And Bobby Portis had a monster game last time. He looks good at his price tag still. But I'm wondering if it looks like Andre Jackson was going to be a little bit of chalk today. Should we be going there to try to fit in a couple more higher price guys? It's not even on the
Yeah.
model.
Once again, like I don't love it. Like he hasn't. I mean, has he put up north of 10 to 15 fantasy points? Like I don't think so. So seems kind of slim. But yeah, we don't have the value. So I could see it if you're jamming like a couple studs. But in terms of like one lineup, I wouldn't love getting to Jackson personally.
So he did put up 22 in his 26 minutes. Someone was out that game. Chris Middleton was out, and so maybe Malik Beasley being out is a similar situation. If Andre Jackson's in the starting lineup, I think he's really the only playable player under 4K that we have at all on DraftKings. And so I don't mind fitting him in because it's kind of like the situation we saw the other night where there just wasn't good value and the min price guy didn't do much, but it allowed us to fit some other guys in our lineup. And so, yeah, I mean, we don't even have him in the model right now, projected for less than 10 minutes. That will change if he's in the starting lineup. But other than him, I mean, AJ Green coming in for 3% at 3,500. I don't think we should really be interested in him. Mike Muscala at 9%. Like that just shows you how ugly the value is on this slate.
Yeah, man, it's rough out here today with 3 games and no value. It's very tough.
I will say I'm somewhat interested in Jayshawn Tate. I mean, he's 4K, and it's like I'm thinking about these guys, and I kind of just want 20 DraftKings points, and I think that he can get close to that. And if we nail, whichever stud we need to get, Devin Booker or KD with a couple of the mid-range guys, I think it could be all right. Um, but let's just go in position by position. I was going to do by game, but I think by position will be a better overview of the slate. And so we already mentioned at the top, we like Devin Booker. Steph Curry is a GPP option. And then Damian Lillard, it's just going to be tough for me to get there because I'd rather just If I'm paying that much, I'd rather pay for KD or Devin Booker. But from the next tier of guys, we have Anthony Simons, Fred VanVleet. I don't know. I guess Shaden Sharp, Jordan Poole. Who are you looking at over here?
Yeah, man. Anthony Simons. So coming off a really big game, he's up to 8K. I really like him here. Matchup isn't incredible, but I think it's I think it's a viable spot. Simons has been the main guy there, even with Brogdon back. Like he looks pretty solid to me. So he's probably my favorite around that range. And then the rest of the guys you mentioned, I'm just kind of getting to the field, but Simon sticks out.
Yeah, Simons, he came in at that low ownership, and I've mentioned he's been coming in at low ownership, and I don't really get it. I think he always deserves to be higher owned. I know we've had some pretty good mid range and slightly cheaper guards available on most of these recent slates, but I mean, 20 plus shots in basically every game except for not quite sure what happened in this Utah game. But besides that, he's been very consistent, and he's putting up the fantasy score, he's putting up the shots, and he's shooting. I mean, double digit shots made almost every game is pretty significant. And it's Golden State. It's not a tough matchup. It's not a cake matchup either. But I'm going to be very interested in Anthony Simons tonight. Excuse me. And then I already mentioned Fred VanVleet against Milwaukee. I like point guards against Milwaukee, and I think Fred VanVleet's price is appropriate, 8,300 and 8,100. He should definitely be the chalk over on FanDuel. It's just at the point guard position, we really don't have much. And so I think let me just pull up point guards real quick. I mean, it's reasonable that a couple of these lower tier guys could put up a score that we want. Tyus Jones put up a triple double. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon, I'm not going to be too interested in him coming off the bench with Simons in. But I think we definitely want to play two from this group up here. And honestly, even Pods is pretty viable. He had a really good game last time. He's been leading the Warriors in minutes played. Steve Kerr really likes him. And so his ownership is reflective of that. But I think our point guard pool, we really want to just restrict it to these top 6 guys. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, you mentioned Fred VanVleet on FanDuel. I think that's just gotta play him there. Point guard's very slim on FanDuel. So I agree with FUV there.
And if we want to get away from one of these guys, I will say Jordan Goodwin at 4,600 on FanDuel sounds pretty good. He's pulling 27% ownership, and I understand the 25% ownership on DraftKings. Just to him being 5K, we don't have that many 5K guys that are viable to play today. Even though he's only projected for 21 minutes, I will say the model doesn't love him. Even in looking at value, he's right in the middle of the pack. So once again, I do think that we want to just pay up and get to these I guess 8K plus and Brandon Pajensky point guards. Maybe mix in some Tyus Jones would be all right.
Yeah.
And looking at the other value, I mean, we got Beauchamp. I think he had a pretty good game yesterday too with Chris Middleton out. And like I said, Malik Beasley's out. It's 35 minutes up for grabs. So Beauchamp, I mean, 10% and 7%. I've talked about I don't like him when he's like chalk, but if he's going to come in this low, we have to have some interest in him, right?
Yeah, man, I kind of just prefer Beauchamp to Jackson. I think they're both in play. I haven't really seen. Do you think they could both get there at cheap price points?
I think they can. And on most slates, I would say just play one or the other because it's really unlikely that both of them close. I mean, if Milwaukee ends up blowing Houston out anyway, it's only like a 7.5 point spread. So we're not too worried about blowout. But on a 3-game slate, it's a little bit different. I don't mind it. I did mention I'm very interested in Chris Middleton today. And he's showing up top of the value, 20% and 7% ownership. The 7K on FanDuel, it's a little bit uncomfortable. The 6,600 on DraftKings is probably appropriate. But I think Chris Middleton is a spot that I kind of want to start my lineups with, especially looking at the ownership here.
Yeah, man. And especially for lower on Giannis, it would, make sense to get to a lot of Middleton. So I like that call a lot.
And we have Courtney in the chat. What price range on FanDuel are we looking for value using the model? So looking at FanDuel, it just, especially on these short slates, we really don't have true value, but it is nice to see guys like Eric Gordon at 5,200 showing up near the top. Klay Thompson has been better. I mean, he was kind of awful to start the season, but he's picking it up, and he didn't start quite as bad last season, but he still ended up leading the league in threes made. I don't think he's going to lead the league in threes made this season, but he's coming around to the Klay that we all know and love. I mean, Beauchamp 3,600. Grayson Allen 5,100 I think is fine. And like looking at the ownership on these guys, I mean, they're all coming in pretty owned, these guys in the 5K range. And so like usually I say values under 5K, but I think if we're playing more in the mid range today than these guys under 6K, And right at 6K, like Brandon Pajemski looked pretty good too. Is there anyone else here that you're interested specifically for FanDuel?
Yeah, you mentioned, Grayson Allen. I think he makes sense with no Bradley Beal, and then Eric Gordon. I mean, no Beal. Like I think he has to take a pretty big bump as well. I know KD's back, but I think that ownership is very much warranted.
And then we have a couple other guys not really pulling ownership. Moses Moody, I'm not sure that we should be terribly interested in him, but it is a 3 game slate and he's 4,400 at 0% ownership. I mean, campaign 4K at 3%. If you are playing for the blowout script, then he could be all right. Matisse Thybulle, 4,100. He's been hitting threes at like a rate that we're not used to seeing from Matisse Thybulle. His minutes are fluctuating a lot, but he's a guy that I've been looking at just because he makes lineup builds a lot easier, especially on DraftKings too. I mean, if he puts up like this 12 to 16 points, we're not going to be thrilled about it. But if we hit the other spots in our lineup, I don't think it's the worst thing.
Yeah, man. And then he's mainly relying off blocks and seals. And then if you do get those 3 pointers to fall, I mean, he could easily get to 20. So I like that call up.
I'm trying to see if there's anyone else. It's such a short slate. I mean, we don't have that many options, but I think we have to look at all the available options because some of these guys are just not pulling ownership. I mean, Chris Paul, 72, 6,800, 15% on FanDuel makes sense to me. I'm not, like I said, like DraftKings, it's just so hard to pay for anyone. And so if I'm paying for someone, I want it to be someone I like rather than, just getting Chris Paul because he's low owned. And then Jayshawn Tate at 6% and 2%, I think is fine too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'll mention Bilal Koulibaly, in this high total game. I think he's been playing pretty well, and 5,700 is a little bit of a steep price. 5,500 too. 20% ownership. I don't think he's the worst play. And then I mentioned Tyus Jones. His price is up a little bit. He put up the triple double, but in the high total game, I'm fine getting to him. His ownership is in check. And Jordan Poole, we saw blow up in the previous game. Finally had a good game when no one wanted to play him. He's 6,700 on both sites. Should we be playing a little bit of Jordan Poole tonight?
I'm just not the biggest Poole fan, but I think we can maybe take sprinkles or take stabs at Jordan Poole. I don't love it. I don't know. What's your take on him?
I think he's fine to sprinkle in, like you said. It just he has a ceiling. I mean, he might hit it like once every 10 games or whatever it is this season. I mean, if we're looking at the price, we're definitely prioritizing Chris Middleton. The ownership isn't terribly different, and so just the model agrees with that too. And so if you're making 20 plus lineups, then I think you can get a share or two of Jordan Poole. But at that price, yeah, I do think that Chris Middleton is going to be the priority. And it looks like the model is a fan of Clay today as well, especially on FanDuel. So. I think we basically talked about most of the guards. I mean, Jalen Green for me, he's always just kind of there at 6K. What do you think about this 35 and 41% ownership? To me, it feels kind of high.
Yeah, that seems pretty high. Guards against Milwaukee isn't the worst, but we mentioned we like Simons and some of these other guys just for a little bit more. So I think I'll probably find myself getting to more of those expensive guards rather than some of these mid-tier guards. Maybe mine is Middleton because we both mentioned how we both like Middleton.
And so I mentioned I really like Fred VanVleet today, but the model is saying that Jalen Green is a better points per dollar play at for the price. So it's just something to consider. And then just want to make sure we didn't get some news. We're getting more Monday news. We don't care about that yet. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So let's move on to forwards. And we already know Giannis top of the model, but it's really hard to fit him in. And I think we got to play two of those gross value plays if we're trying to get him in, especially over on DraftKings. But KD, I mean, he's a couple $1,000s cheaper, and he's pulling the ownership. The ownership is definitely there, but I think he's a really good play against Washington. Same with D Book. We see Chris Middleton third on overall OF index for forwards, higher than like Kyle Kuzma, Jeremy Grant. And so I think that's pretty significant. We want to play him. I will say he's projected for 31 minutes. How many minutes has Chris Middleton been playing recently? Okay, so he's getting up to 30 minutes. So we see that he's not on as much of a minutes restriction, and so Chris Middleton's really good. Doesn't matter that Damian Lillard's there. He's filling up the stat sheet, and I think he's one of the better plays on the slate today when considering the ownership. But talk to me about Kyle Kuzma, Jeremy Grant, like Shaden Sharp.
Yeah, so Kuzma, I think is always a solid tournament play. Coming in against Phoenix, like it's not an awful run back. Between him and Poole, much prefer Kuzma. So maybe like a Kuzma KD mini game stack could be sneaky way in tournaments. And then yeah, Jeremy Grant and Sharp, just really tough to prioritize when everyone's healthy. Sharp, he is actually a good fantasy player. I think he'd be the guy I'd probably prefer, but um, yeah, I'm not going to find myself too much with those three.
I like that Kyle Kuzma call at 5%. If we're running it back, if we can find the way to fit in, you know, Kyle Kuzma with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, either one, I think that's a pretty good tournament shot at 5. Excuse me, at 5% owned, and it is a 13.5 point spread. Washington is getting blown out like every other day, if not every day they play. But if they manage to keep it close, then it's probably has a lot to do with Kyle Kuzma. And he had a pretty good game in the last one. I know Jordan Poole had the blow up, and for the price, Kuzma wasn't necessarily the best play, but I mean, you weren't super disappointed with the 46 fantasy points at the. I think he was 8,400 on the last slate, and so I mean, he's getting the shots up, and so Kyle Kuzma at 5%, it's not a bad GPP pivot to the other guys. Denny Avdia, I mean, Jabari Smith, Bobby Portis. Who else in this mid range besides Chris Middleton?
Yeah, I actually like Bobby Portis a decent amount, especially if I'm not getting up to Giannis. Like him and Middleton, I think both make a ton of sense. Portis just a guy like he's gonna pick up the scoring when Giannis isn't doing most of the scoring, so I think he makes a ton of sense. And then yeah, Jabari Smith, he's so boom bust. Like we've seen him go for 35 plus. He's also played like 25 and went for 20 fancy points. So very boom bust with Jabari. Not a fan of the matchup either. So probably would prefer Portis there.
Yeah, I mean, Jabari's probably going to have to be matched up with Giannis tonight, but I think the price is still fine. I think the ownership's in check, and he was pretty consistent until the last game. If he gives us right around this 30 fantasy points that he's usually getting on DraftKings on tonight's 3-game slate, I think that we should be more than happy with that. And then over on FanDuel, 6,600 pulling slightly less ownership. I think he's a fine play there too. You mentioned Bobby Portis as a play that you really like tonight. I mean, the 5,300 on FanDuel seems a little bit too cheap, and 25% seems a little bit too low for him being at that low a price tag. And the 18% on DraftKings isn't bad either.
Yeah, definitely. And I know they're not kind of the same position, but Grayson Allen as a forward, I think, was picking up heavy chalk. Portis is like half the ownership, so I kind of like that in terms of tournaments.
I like that call actually, and I like Grayson Allen tonight, but that's a pretty good call. Bobby Portis, it's like he's probably going to disappoint us a little bit more than Grayson Allen, which is kind of weird to say, but he definitely has a much higher ceiling. And I mean, when we're trying to win a contest, especially on a 3-game slate, if we can get the lower owned guy to hit his ceiling, it's pretty powerful. And we have a question in chat, Connaughton for Milwaukee. So we talked about Beauchamp. We talked about Andre Jackson. Yeah, Connaughton's kind of just getting forgotten at 3%, 2% ownership. I mean, right around this 4K price tag. Do you think the field is kind of making a mistake here by not playing Connaughton that much?
Yeah, and don't we have Beasley out, like you mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as if he gets minutes, like he's a really good fantasy producer. I love playing Connaughton. Yeah, so if we're getting Beauchamp and uh, the other cheap scrub, I think Pat Connaughton makes a ton of sense as a pivot. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he sounds great to me. I mean, he only played 12 and 15 minutes in the last 2 games, but he was consistently getting over 20 before that. And so if we get 20 minutes out of Pat Connaughton tonight, let me see what we have him projected for. Pat Connaughton, we have him for 17 and a half. And so if he just plays like 5 more minutes than his projection, I think he's awesome at 3%, 2%, especially when we're going to be uncomfortable with most of the other cheap value plays that we're getting. I don't think we have to be that uncomfortable playing Pat Connaughton. Like, yeah, it's probably not going to work out a lot of the time, but when it does work out, you're getting combos that most of the field isn't getting, especially if we're trying to play 2 of the higher price studs tonight, along with a couple guys in the mid range like Middleton and Pods. And let me sort this by DK value. So, yep, Chris Middleton, top of the model value. KD, like it's. I talk about this every day. Like Giannis showing up near the top of value, being the most expensive player in the slate, but it's just so hard to get him in today. And then Grayson Allen, Beauchamp, Jeremy Grant pulling 20 and 37% ownership. I don't mind him. I think I'd rather just try and find a little bit more salary and get to some of the other guys. But is there anyone on this list that you think that we should be interested in tonight?
Yeah, man. I would have liked Tari Eason if Tate was still up, but he's priced up now to almost 6K, so really tough for me to get to him. And then was Corey Kispert, like, he's projecting for some ownership, isn't he? Or am I?
No,
I don't
he's
know.
at 40% and 20%. Can you explain that to me?
I don't get it. Like, I saw that ownership, I was like, am I missing something? Because like he's a mainly just a shooter. Like, yeah, shooters against Phoenix maybe to keep him in the game, but it just seems like a really tough click there. I think I'd rather play any other value at the current ownership we have for Kispert.
Yeah, it's like if Kispert was $1,000 cheaper, then I agree. He definitely should be chalk. And he had a really good game last time. He put up 23 points. Looks like that was his season high. But I talk about this, like if the field is trying to ride that ceiling performance from these role players, I almost just want to click him out of my player pool if he's really going to be 38% owned on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's insane to me. Like, there's no reason for him to be that chalk. Like, we don't really have anyone out that would bump him, so like I don't really get that chalk.
And remember, guys, if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat. We're here for you guys. It's kind of a quiet Sunday. We have NFL going on. It's a short 3-game slate, and so if you guys like have any more specific questions, we're happy to go into whatever you guys want to talk about. Just trying to see who else. Like Dario Saric, I'd be interested in, but his price is kind of high. Maybe on FanDuel with power forward eligibility, it's not too bad at under 10% ownership. Like Danilo Gallinari, I mean, pulling 19% ownership. What are we even doing here? I know it's a high total, but it just seems not the play today.
Yeah, man, Gallinari, like he's a backup. Well, technically a backup power forward. I think he's the backup center. So if Gafford would get in foul trouble, he would get minutes. But like, can we really bank on Gafford getting foul trouble? I don't know. It just seems like once again too slim a value for me to really target. But just would rather get to the Bucks guys like we mentioned.
Yeah, another guy that I'm interested in crossing out in my player pool. The one thing with Corey Kispert, I will say, is I feel like he would get the blowout run if Phoenix pulls away. I don't think Danilo Gallinari does. I mean, he's an older veteran, and they're gonna play like Koulibaly, Anthony Gill in the blowout minutes rather than Gallinari. And sports media in the chat, Tari Eason and Pod still value is Pool a good pick? Can he back it up? And so I think Pods is a good play tonight. I'm going to be playing a lot of Pods. As for Tari Eason, like Jayhawk mentioned, he's a little bit priced up, and with Jayshawn Tate coming back, his price is slightly uncomfortable, but he has shown a ceiling over and over again. And so what's Tari Eason's ownership? I mean, 23 and 7% ownership I don't think is too bad. I think the price is a little bit high. We haven't projected for 23 minutes. But like I said, he's a great fantasy point per minute guy. And so I think he's an okay play. And then as for Jordan Poole, I don't know. He's a GPP play, like Jayhawk mentioned earlier. I think we can sprinkle him in. I'm not super interested in going back to him today. I think I'd rather just pay up a little and get to Kuzma, and then play Chris Middleton and Pods in my guard spots if we're living in that mid range.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed with you there. No doubt there.
And do we like Nurk at his price? So it's a good transition into centers. I think we pretty much touched on every forward. I will say Dylan Brooks is there at 5,100 and 4,900. He's pulling some ownership, but I think he's okay too. So Nurk at his price, Nurk has been like really fantastic lately. Even when the big three were in for like that game in 4 minutes or whatever it was before Bradley Beal hurt his ankle. I mean, Nurkic is killing it. I tried to fit in Nurkic in my dummy build, and the salary 7,400. I think it's an appropriate price for him, but it's just so hard to fit him in. I found myself living more in the mid range with centers down to like Gafford, Bobby Portis. I mean, that was pretty much it. So, what do you think about Nurkic tonight?
Yeah, man, I've always been a big Nurkic guy. I think he gets a phenomenal matchup here against Washington. Obviously, bigs against Washington's something I love to target. So I really like him today. Him and KD are going to be probably my highest exposed Suns. D-Book followed right behind him. I just think center's not a great position today. Probably going to try to prioritize him. I just know he is coming with ownership as well. So other people are doing the same as me.
Yeah, you mentioned center's not a great position. I actually didn't even notice that he was coming in for 50% ownership on DraftKings, 36% on FanDuel. Like, is that not insane?
It's crazy. It's just center. Like, I don't want to play Gafford against him, and it's just like I guess you could play Portis. We mentioned him earlier, but I just don't love the position.
And even Gafford coming in for 44%. Like the 5,600 does help us do more things with our lineup. It gives us more flexibility compared to playing Nurkic. Nurkic obviously has a higher ceiling. He has a higher median range of outcomes. I mean, Brook Lopez is a little bit cheaper than Nurkic. Is Nurkic going to outscore Brook Lopez, 8 times out of 9? Probably not, but at 6% ownership, I don't mind taking a couple shots on Brook Lopez. And then Sengun was like the mega chalk for a while. And Brook Lopez is a good defensive player, but 6% on DraftKings at 8,600 compared to Nurkic 7,400 at 50%. That seems a little bit too uneven to me.
Yeah, no, Sengun always a great tournament play. I definitely have no issues going to Sengun.
Yeah, and especially the 8,200 on FanDuel, pulling 21% ownership. That sounds pretty good to me too. And then thoughts on Aiton. I'm never going to be excited about getting to Aiton, especially I don't love playing centers against Golden State. I don't think that they've been going super small recently, but it's just there's so much opportunity for Aiden to get played off the court. Either he gets benched from his own poor play, or Golden State goes small and they can't run him out there. And he's not the type of player who they give the ball to in the post and let him go to work. Let me see how many shots a game he's been taking recently. I mean, 5 shots, 13, 8, 9, 13, and he's not even doubling every game. So I will say he's a GPP play, but I don't think I'm making I think I reserved 20 lineups on DraftKings tonight. I don't think I'm playing a single share of DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, I'm not really fond on him either. Just hasn't really shown the ceiling recently. So
And but center is rough tonight. And like I said, I'm going to cross Gallinari out of my player pool. If Gallinari is necessary to win this slate tonight, then I'm just not going to win. I'm fine with that. But it looks like Nurkic, maybe a little bit of Brook Lopez, Daniel Gafford, Bobby Portis, a little bit of Sengun, and I want to say Kevon Looney at this 5,400 and 5K price. Kind of what I was just talking about, Golden State going small. Like they don't have Draymond, so they can't run Draymond at center anymore. So maybe that is better for Looney. Maybe that is better for Aiden and Saric. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty tight center pool tonight. And a lot of times I talk about playing 2 centers, especially on DraftKings. And tonight I might not even play 1 center in a lot of my lineups if I'm playing Bobby Portis.
yeah, center is just it's so tough, man. Like I think for me, I'm just gonna eat the Nurkic chalk, and it sucks because I usually love playing 2 centers, right? Like DraftKings in particular, like we want to play 2 centers most nights. So haven't really found that second center. But you mentioned Gafford. Maybe it's Gafford. I'll get a little correlation there with Gafford and Nurkic. So I like that call.
And then would we play Pat Connaughton and Marjon Beauchamp together? Yeah, I have no problem with it. They're going to share the court, and in the event of a blowout, I don't know if Pat Connaughton sees a blowout time, but Beauchamp definitely would. And so I don't think they overlap too much. And on the short slate, we can't be too picky about the value that we want to play together, especially when we don't have that many value options. And so, yeah, I think it's fine. Especially, I mean, they're both coming in so low owned. I think we should try and be playing one of them in a bunch of our lineups. Either way, especially with Malik Beasley out.
Yeah, it's just like with the lack of value, like these guys, Beauchamp and Connaughton just seem like pretty easy plug and plays. I think so at least. So I'm fine with both together as well.
And then Sengun. So we mentioned it a little bit, but I think Sengun is a really good play. Probably over on FanDuel more so than he is on DraftKings. Just we have a little bit more salary flexibility over there, and that's reflecting the ownership 21%, but 6% on DraftKings. I mean, Sengun was kind of a stud for a while. Has he just fallen off? I mean, yeah, he's had a few bad games in a row, but he's still playing the minutes. He's still taking the shots. He's shooting poorly. The assists haven't been there. The rebounds have been about what we expect, but yeah, I mean, Sengun is a good GPP play, but again, it's really hard to fit in. Even the 1,200 to go up from Nurkic, it's pretty hard to fit him in.
Yeah, man, I really want to play Sengun. I'm a huge Sengun guy, but with the price point and inconsistency, and then kind of a tough matchup here against Milwaukee, gonna be tough for me to click on him tonight at least. So
All right, so we pretty much got through all the positions. We're going to attempt to build some kind of dummy build here. I think we're just going to default to the chalk for the first part of it, the first few guys in. I mean, Nurkic, the highest owned play on the slate. I don't want to start the build with him. We'll see if we can find the salary to fit him in. But, I mean, Corey Kispert is the 5th highest owned player on the slate. That's just insane to me. Like, if he was 4K, I get it, but he's not 4K. And that extra $800, it helps us do so much. Like on FanDuel, I understand it a little bit more, 4,500. But on DraftKings, I feel like I just want to X him out and just take the leverage. Like it's going to burn me, like I said, like it could with Gallinari, but I think it's going to work out more times than it doesn't.
especially like a shooter, right? Like he needs his shots to go in. If they don't go in, like he's not most likely not getting the value. So I think I probably X him out as well.
So I was going to say, I usually like to start our builds with the value, but Beauchamp and Connaughton are both projected for 10% or less ownership. And so I don't necessarily want to put that in the chalk build. We might still throw them in anyway, but like from the higher owned guys, I mean, is Pods the first guy that we're going to throw in there?
Yeah, man, Pods. I love his ceiling here, and he's cheap enough. And yeah, I think Pods is probably a guy.
Just since he's been in the starting lineup, like Steve Kerr is just running this guy 35 minutes, 32 minutes, even 29 minutes the game before that. Like he fills up the stat sheet, and he did have a poor shooting night a couple nights ago and he was kind of chalky, but I mean, he made up for it if you got to him yesterday. So we're just going to go ahead and put Pods into our dummy build, put him in at the shooting guard spot for now. So we got one position down. This is a tough slate, man.
Very tough. We both like KD. Maybe we go KD at power forward or small forward.
KD, yeah, let's do that. And we have Brandon Smith in the chat. Hell no to who? I hope it's not Pods because I might have to change around my exposures if that's the case.
Hopefully not.
I think we can just go ahead and throw in Marjon Beauchamp here. He's a little bit more comfortable than Pat Connaughton. Oh, he's saying hell no to Kispert. Yeah, I think that like it's. I don't know how he's actually going to come in at this ownership, but if he does, I think it's just like probably the best play on the slate is just not playing him, getting leverage over 60% of the field.
Yeah, it just seems like easy pivot.
Let's try throwing in. Is Pat Connaughton forward only? That's a little restrictive. Pat Connaughton forward only. Is Beauchamp a shooting guard? All right, Beauchamp's a shooting guard. So we'll throw Connaughton in at the small forward. Throw Beauchamp in at the guard. I guess we'll just put Nurkic in at center and see how that looks. 7,400. It's kind of expensive. And I like your idea of running back a low-owned Kuzma with KD. So leaves us 5K for 2 more spots. And what about Simons tonight or any of Portland? Yeah, I really like Simons tonight. We're going to have to make a pivot if we want to get there. We can't do it with this build. But maybe instead of running back Kuzma, we just get to Simons instead.
Love that.
Just throw him in there. It leaves us 5,300 for each position. Is there any other chalk that Gafford at 5,600. I don't mind it. It's just we don't have options tonight. Actually, no, I'm going to go with your call of Bobby Portis.
Okay. Gafford's good too. I mean, double center is definitely viable.
Yeah. If we found another 500 somewhere, maybe we went down from Connaughton to Andre Jackson, then we could fit in Gafford as well. So I don't want to put Andre Jackson in our dummy just because he's not even in the model yet. So we're projecting him for less than 10 minutes, and he is only a play if he's confirmed in the starting lineup. Otherwise, we're not playing Andre Jackson at all.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Do not play him if he doesn't start.
And Brandon Smith in chat again. Would we make a rule to not play Booker and KD together or just let it ride if it's only a couple? If it was a larger slate, I'd probably prefer not to. But on the 3-game slate, if I'm only getting it in a couple of lineups, then I don't mind it. Let me see if I'm getting that combo at all. Yeah, I'm actually getting that combo a decent amount. And it looks like in most of them, the run back is Gafford. If we can somehow find the salary to play those two with Kuzma or Poole, I think I like it a little bit more. But it just, if both of them get there, we have to think that the game stays close. And for the game to stay close, someone on Washington has to do well. Maybe Tyus Jones could be the run back too. So we have a couple options. As long as it's not Kispert or Gallinari as the run back, then I don't mind it.
Yeah, and then also like if Bradley Beal was in, I definitely probably would restrict it to 1. But with him out, I think 2 is definitely fine.
Yeah, just like you said, it's not going to show up in that many lineups. And on a 3-game slate, I just don't want to be that restrictive with the rules I'm setting tonight. Back to that question about Connaughton and Beauchamp together. It just, especially we don't have much value, so that's a little different for those guys. But I don't want to, prevent myself from having the possible tournament winner tonight if I'm setting those kind of rules. And then we have 5,100. It's easy to fit in. Dylan Brooks. I wish I knew. I don't know what happened with Jabari Walker. Do you know what happened to him in the last game? He only played 5 minutes.
I do not. Maybe an injury. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, because this is a guy I was looking at, but then I saw the 5 minutes and I didn't quite Understand that. But I mean, if there's nothing about him on the injury report, it's kind of weird because Jeremy Grant's back and his price is much higher than it should be. Not much higher, maybe like $1,000 higher than it should be with Jeremy Grant in the lineup. So maybe we just shouldn't be that interested in Jabari Walker tonight.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything from the last game, so it may just be minutes cut. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, he didn't even pick up a foul either, so it's kind of weird. But like I said, if Jeremy Grant is confirmed back, then I don't know that we have to have interest in Jabari Walker. And Connaughton may still be on a minutes limit, right? Here's the thing with like the minutes limit. When I hear minutes limit for like star players, I'm thinking 30 minutes less. With Connaughton, sure, if he's on like a 20-minute limit, um, it reduces his potential to have a ceiling game for Pat Connaughton. But at his price, 4,200, I'll be kind of happy if he plays 20 minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, 20 minutes out of Connington with no Beasley in this matchup, I think looks phenomenal. So, yeah, I like that a lot.
Let me see. And we got Smitty in the chat saying that was Grant's first game back. Yeah, so Grant came back and Jabari Walker just lost all of his playing time. So we're not interested in Jabari Walker tonight. And so just for this last utility spot, yeah, I mean, Dylan Brooks is fine. Jordan Goodwin's coming in a little chalky. I don't think he's a bad play. 23, 27, 30 minutes. There is no Beal. Grayson Allen is back in the lineup. Eric Gordon is expected to be back in the lineup, so maybe it's a little restrictive for his minute ceiling. But he should get the blowout run if it turns into a blowout. And at 13.5 point spread, I'm comfortable. If we want to play that game script, I think it's fine.
CMC touchdown.
Number Let's 2. Go. Let's go, CMC.
Is that 3 or number 2? Did you get another one?
CMC?
Yeah.
I know he had one before we started the stream. I hadn't checked for a few minutes, though, so guess we'll see. Good luck to us and our best ball teams. If you guys out there have some sweats, I have some sweats, so see what happens after this night game tonight. And I think we're pretty much done here a few minutes early. We'll hang out for another minute or two in case anyone has any last minute questions. CMC 3 touchdowns. Cool. And if you're interested in playing the NFL Showdown slate tonight, I think it's a really good slate. We have 3 underperforming wide receivers, which is a metric that we use here at Occupy to just identify players that are scoring less fantasy points than expected. And so go check out the plug if you're interested in reading about that. You can access the website. I think it's model only for $7 a week, but if you're interested in signing up for everything that Occupy has to offer, there's instructions in the description below. And, we just appreciate you guys being here on the YouTube either way. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about on this slate? I think we pretty much talked about every single player that's relevant.
Yeah, I think we covered it for the most part. So, yeah, dummy build looks good. I think the one guy I did want to mention for the dummy build was Middleton. We could have.
Oh, you're right.
We try to fit him in real quick.
Yeah.
Over Portis, maybe. I think maybe move Portis, go to Middleton.
Yeah, let's take Portis out. No, you're absolutely right. Middleton was like the guy I was supposed to start my builds with. I completely forgot to throw him in here. So that leaves us with 4,100. I mean, Gallinari is a chalk, but let me just make sure the model agrees with me before I tell everyone not to play Gallinari. Gallinari. Yeah, the model agrees. Don't play him, dude. No Gallo. And then Corey Kispert showing up pretty low here, too, for being 48%. I will say there's no one above him on the model in terms of value who is cheaper. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think it's pretty easy leverage just to play Connaughton or Beauchamp. Middleton is out. So Middleton rested yesterday with the idea that he was supposed to play today. So I don't know where that's coming from. Yeah, he was out yesterday for rest. He's not injured. And he was only out because of the back-to-back. So Middleton is in today. Yeah. Unless we hear otherwise. Expect him to play. Wayne, not a fan of the games today. Yeah, these games, it's a tough slate, man. We have another value option thrown into the chat. Don't sleep on 3.8K Metu. That is a good point because Bradley Beal is going to be out. There's some minutes in the rotation, and Metu actually looks pretty decent. I mean, he only got 10 minutes in the last game. He played 20 the game before that. Where is the model on Chimezie Metu? Is he power forward? Is he even in the model? So if he's not in the model, that means that we're projecting him for less than 10 minutes. But sometimes on these short slates, we have to go beyond the model. And so we probably have Metu projected for like 8 or 9 minutes or something like that. It would depend a little bit on Nas Little. If Nas Little ends up sitting, I think Metu is a better play. But like I said, it's kind of hard to find cheap value on these slates. And so if you want to get to Metu, I think it's fine.
Yeah, definitely. I think with all those, I think Little is confirmed in. Going to be kind of tough for me to get to Metu, but I guess if you wanted to take a stab, hope he gets there in like 10 minutes, you could, but not my favorite.
Yeah, keep an eye on Little though. I don't know, maybe Underdog tweeted something out and I missed it. But as of what time is this? Okay, this was as of yesterday, so this news isn't updated. Don't trust DraftKings with this kind of stuff. But yeah, we appreciate you guys being here on this Sunday. It's a short slate. It's kind of a tougher slate, but I think we found the leverage. And so, yeah, any final words?
Yeah, gonna be going lighter on the slate, but definitely a slate we can still play. So good luck, and yeah, hopefully you guys crush the slate.
But Ish Wainwright is playing today. Just want to. What team does Ish Wainwright play for? Just kidding.
No idea.
I mean, he's a flat min. He's gotten 3 minutes twice this year. I don't think we have to really be interested. He's on Portland. I thought he was on the Suns.
It's like one of those games. Pick what player the team's on. They did it with like Shaq one time, and I don't. It was funny, but
yeah, who he play for is so entertaining, dude. It's like I love it when I'm watching and I don't even know who that he plays for because if they're not DFS relevant and they're at the end of the bench, sometimes I don't care. Exactly. So I don't think Ishmael affects anything, so we don't have to worry about that. But appreciate you guys for being here. We have a ton of comments I missed. Sorry. Let's we have 1 more minute, so let's Looney a value. Yeah, I think Looney's a fine play tonight. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Join us in the Discord if we have any late news pop up or if you have any more questions.
Yep, I'll be breaking it down. So I'll hop on the Discord if you can. And yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, nice. Yeah, we do have another Q&A live with Jayhawk if you want a little bit more one-on-one talk. So